G'day, mate. Porty here. Do you remember 2.5 weeks ago, I kept referring to a Sunday afternoon live stream by veteran political observer reporter Mark Halperin, and he keeps making the point that Kamala Harris is never on the verge of posts on Twitter, in particular, pointing out how often Kamala Harris appears intoxicated. And so, at a deeper truth, I mean, there's nothing in the news media about Kamala Harris having a drinking problem, but what you can find if you look carefully through the archives is that it is indisputable that Kamala Harris loves wine and that she has excellent taste regarding wine, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. So Steve Saylor just did a big column on Kamala Harris's drinking tastes, which I'll reference. But here is the Mark Halperin conversation from August 4 to get this started. Kamala Harris has never been vetted at the level she's going to be vetted now, says Mark Halperin about the tabloid report regarding her husband that has rattled her campaign.
Now in the president's race is extremely complicated. And both candidates right now, and both campaigns, both red and blue, there's more tension than there's been during the entire time since the switch was made from Biden to Harris. Tension on the Republican side, which as of now we're going to talk about less tonight because the tension on the Democratic side is more newsworthy right now. In part is caused by President Trump's performance last night in Georgia.
Okay, here is the money shot from Mark Halperin's comments.
And the other is the question of the vetting of the vice president herself. Something I've made here repeatedly is people assume that if you've run for statewide office and won, particularly in a competitive state, if you've been a senator or a vice president, that you've been vetted at a level sufficient that there are no more surprises coming. We saw over the weekend that that's not true regarding the vice president and her husband. And one big question in this race now is there more information about her coming out? There's deep concern at some high levels of the Democratic Party that there will be. And there could be enormous implications for that. And we'll talk about that. First, I want to talk about deep stakes. I don't know where it stands. I'm getting such...
Okay, so why do people keep talking online about...
Ladies and gentlemen, the Democrats might have a major problem. Kamala Harris appearing legitimately drunk on many of these clips. I'm not just saying that. I mean, you can see the clips for yourself. She's either drunk or there's something really wrong going on with like 5 or 6 of these clips. And you've got high-level police officers saying that, you know, they've seen a recent clip of her, it was like Wisconsin or something, and she would be charged with a DUI. They say they've seen so many drunk people. She's got all the mannerisms, the body language, the speech patterns, and she'll do this thing. Remember the clip with her and Biden on the tarmac at the airport, and Biden just got the dead-eye look, and she's like repeating herself, saying same words in back-to-back sentences. It's just all a total mess. But you do have this thread talking, and we're just going to go through these, and I guess I'll just react to them and see really what's going on here.
And I just wanted to come by and say hello. You guys are the reason I do what I do. And I just love your competitive spirit. I love how you guys are just working at it. You are ready to be a team, and you're ready to compete. And I just got...
Is she drunk?
So proud. How you guys doing?
Watch her arm.
Just very strange. This one's even worse. I've seen this one.
When we think about the strength of our democracy,
I mean, look at her.
you know, I think that there's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, oh, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms. So strong in its nature. And it's very fragile.
Oh my God.
It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight.
I mean, that at the end there is just...
I think it is important to look at folks like Haley and Kelly and also say we're going to take note of the fact that during the pandemic, over 2 million people, 2 million women people became unemployed.
Women people. Oh, here's another one with Biden. This is vintage Biden.
Extraordinary President Joe Biden. he's gonna
she's
speak
sweating.
in a minute, but there's a lot of love, and he's gonna speak in a minute, but.
Right, who came up with the wine mom appellation?
Look at her eyes.
He's gonna speak in a minute, but.
I mean, they're seriously
woke. Like everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker.
Yeah, I don't think she was drunk at that one, but that was another one. So just, I mean, listen, she's either at least tipsy or there's something serious wrong. There's something seriously wrong, and maybe this is an October surprise for the Republicans. It'll be interesting to see. Democrats might still invoke the 25th Amendment to make Harris president. Well, that's probably a last-ditch effort for them to try and get a second Harris honeymoon period if she's doing terrible in the polls in September. Now, the reason I believe they didn't do the 25th immediately with Biden, it's probably a twofold. They probably made a deal with Biden because, remember, the Party of Democracy, their primaries have not been Democratic the last 3 times. You've got Bernie Sanders admitting that they ganged up on him. They took him out in 2016 with all of the money, all of the support behind Hillary. It was completely biased, and then in 2020, they told everyone drop out and support Biden on that Super Tuesday. It was crazy after it to try and, basically form a mountain against Bernie and form all the vote against him, and they won that. Say what you want about Trump, but he's faced big-time donors in 2024, first with Ron DeSantis getting $160 million. Ron DeSantis...
So Steve Saylor has just released his weekly column. High Spirits is the title. During an unusual stretch in United States history in which many of the candidates for national office, such as Donald Trump, Tim Walz, Joe Biden, Mike Pence, Mitt Romney, and George Bush, have been teetotalers, Kamala Harris is restoring American political tradition by finding joy in the battle. Right? She loves wine. The California candidate is an ardent personal supporter of her home state's famous wine industry, while also displaying knowledge of European vintages. The owner of Washington's Cork Wine Bar enthused in 2020. She can talk about different varieties. She can talk about the differences between California oak and French oak. She knows what she likes. She likes the California wines, but she has a great appreciation for the old world wines as well. So we live in an era in which Americans seem much more interested in the drinking habits of dead presidents such as Ulysses S. Grant, rather than the drinking habits of live contenders such as Kamala Harris. So in 2015, ABC News interviewed the New York Times reporter who shadowed Hillary Clinton's failed 2008 run for the Democratic nomination. And they asked her, what's the one thing that surprised you about her? She likes to drink. We were on the campaign trail in 2008. The press thought she was just taking shots to pander to voters in Pennsylvania. No. Right. And the Democrats nominated Hillary in 2016. She lost to teetotaler Donald Trump.
At one point was the favorite to be the president before the Republican primary because he had a better approval rating than both Biden and Trump by a lot. Trump beats him. Then they shift all their donor money to Nikki Haley. Trump easily beats her. You've got 2016 Ted Cruz, Rubio, Ben Carson. Originally it was Jeb. All of the donors.
So I remember one evening I was staying with my girlfriend and she prepared dinner and it was delicious. And everything was great, but then suddenly she just changed personality like that. She was, I guess, an alcoholic, but then she took a Xanax along with her alcohol, and then she just started conking out, and she was just dead to the world. And I didn't know what to do. I'd never experienced anything like it. It just freaked me out. I went from having a very live girlfriend to one who was completely zoned out. She never warned me. She didn't tell me what happened, and I packed up and went home. It was just so disturbing to me. And then the next morning she called me and explained what happened. So I don't have much personal experience aside from that one occasion with people mixing wine with Xanax, but probably explains a lot of Kamala Harris's behavior. Let's have a look at the chat. Kamala sounds like a wine ant on a Xanax. Yeah, that reads true to me. Who came up with the wine mom appellation? Good question. Right, it seems like the simplest, easiest explanation for Kamala Harris and her drinking issues.
And that's why I think you see Biden, they just let him do whatever he wants now. There's no really obligation for him to be.
Okay, so it's fun just to put Kamala drunk into X.
just wanted to come by and say hello. You guys are the reason I do what I do. And I just love your competitive spirit. I love how you guys are just working at it. You are ready to be a team and you're ready to compete. And I just got
Is she drunk?
So proud. How you guys doing?
Watch her arm. What?
And I just wanted to come by and say
Okay.
I think it is important to look at folks like Haley and Kelly and also say we're going to take note of the fact that during the pandemic, over 2 million people, 2 million women people became unemployed. I think it is important.
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right? It's no longer in a physical place. So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right? It's no longer in a physical place. So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping
Our extraordinary President Joe Biden. And he's going to speak in a minute, but there's a lot of love in this room for our president. Our extraordinary president.
Okay, looking at this Twitter post, a lot of chatter on X regarding Kamala Harris's bizarre word salads. For a long time, people just assumed she's a moron. She rose through the ranks of Democratic politics on the backs of her relationships with powerful people. Certainly not charismatic. There's now an alternative theory about why she's so incoherent. And once you look, you can't unsee the likelihood that it is true. Is Kamala simply drunk most of the time? If you watch her talk with that possibility in mind, so much makes sense all of a sudden. All those word salads, the slurring, the inappropriate laughs, these are all tells that her brain is fogged by something, and it may not be stupidity. So it could be a Xanax addiction, right? Addiction to benzodiazepines would probably be easier to hide, but harder to kick during a campaign. The withdrawal symptoms are famously harsh. Period of time it takes to get better is famously long. We know inside that she's pretty empty, highly insecure, right? Doesn't she look inebriated? She doesn't always slur her words, but when she does, it's hard to unsee. The campaign is trying to sell joy, but looks like inebriation. Not falling down drunk, but not exactly sober either. So let's have a look here at Hot Air, long essay yesterday. A lot of rumors coming out about Kamala having a serious drinking problem.
and I just wanted to come by.
We played that one already. She looks like a mess.
because when we think about the strength of our democracy, you know, I think that there's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, oh, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights.
And chat knows what people miss is that Joe Biden chose her because she was a liability. He didn't want a competent vice president. He wanted a sabotaged vice president.
Freedoms, so strong in its nature, and it's very fragile. It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it.
Right. Once you hear the suggestion that she's drunk in these clips, it does ring true.
I think it is important to look at folks like Haley and Kelly and also say we're going to take note of the fact that during the pandemic, over 2 million people, 2 million women people became unemployed.
Right. If it's public speaking anxiety, they have meds for that.
Extraordinary President Joe Biden. And he's going to speak in a minute, but there's a lot of love in this room for our president.
Even the interviewers look uncomfortable.
We have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
Look how uncomfortable the interviewers appear.
We have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
Alcohol-induced overconfidence breeds stupid ideas. Beat up the bouncer. Why not? Steal a patent? Damn straight.
I will snatch their patent so that we will take over. And yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. It's the question is, do you have the will to do it? I have the will to do it. I will snatch their patent so that we will take over. And yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. It's the question is, do you have the will to do it? I have the will to do it.
All right, she doesn't usually slur her words, but what do you think?
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right? Mm-hmm. It's no longer in a physical place.
Did Kamala learn her drinking from her Indian mom, her Jamaican dad, or from California culture?
Real president of this country, is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne.
Come
on. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president. It's Joe Biden.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden. And I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris. And the reality is, because we are in office, we do.
Why is she so excited about charge ports on buses? Did she just wake up from a 20-year nap?
The bus has Wi-Fi and even USB outlets next to every seat. I mean, come on, imagine. You can charge your phone on your way home from work. That's good stuff.
I'm pointing to the direction of what I believe is the Capitol. And what needs to happen in terms of people who otherwise have evidenced themselves having a feckless quality to show some courage, to reject the false notion that suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away.
Right. Once you see it, it's hard to unsee it.
It is a reflection of our moment and our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because it comes in the morning. We have to find ways to also express the way we feel about the moment in terms of just having language and a connection to how people are experiencing life. And I think about it in that way, too.
And one person in the chat, Kyle, says she might just be manic. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I just see someone who's neurotic and extremely underprepared for these events.
Never let anyone take your joy from you. I call myself a joyful warrior. Right? Never let anyone take your joy from you. You do what you gotta do. And isn't that a wonderful way to live? To know you have purpose.
Yeah, she's sober as a judge. Apparently, Kamala was told not to speak during this event because she was too intoxicated, but she did anyways.
What to go to, what to do, what not to do, and they got to pay attention. I got more work to do. So.
Madam Vice President, how do you feel?
This is an extraordinary day, and I'm very thankful for our president and what he has done over his entire career, but in particular as it relates to these families and these individuals, what he has been able to do to bring the allies together on many issues, but in particular this one. This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy and strengthening alliances. This is an incredible day. You can see it in the families, in their eyes, and in their cries.
All right, this has got to break through onto Mark Halperin's show and into the mainstream news media. Report apparently Kamala's aides are having trouble keeping her sober, which is why she's only doing the scheduled rallies. Every time she gets off the plane, she's apparently drunk. So that's why they're hiding her from the press. So you watch all these clips of her bizarre moments over the years, and you just wonder what the heck is going on.
At the White House, he's constantly at his vacation home. He'll do like one interview a week, and everyone's cool with it because they just don't view him as the president at this point. That's how much of a train wreck this administration is. They can't get through 4 years, and people don't even. I mean, it's just a symbolic thing that he's the president at this point. We also do have these crazy numbers from CBS. And look, you can say what you want about, well, Harris is up by 4 in Michigan and up by 3 in Pennsylvania and all that. If these exit poll numbers hold like this, there's no way Trump is losing this election. You've got the economy. Who do you trust more? Trump 56%, inflation, Trump 61%. The border obviously is going to be Trump by 3/4 there. And that's why Kamala and the Democrats, their strategy is to try and be badasses and very hard asses on the border. And some liberal people are pissed off about that because normally Democrats, they play both sides. They say we want a strong border, but we have to let people come in. They're really not doing that. And that's a strategy because a lot of Americans, many independents, believe that the border is a major problem right now and it's totally out of control. So the Democrats are forced to say, we're going to play ball and be very tough on it. We're not.
Okay, I just put Kamala drunk into Twitter, and let's see what comes up.
My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? My mother she would give us.
Because when we think about the strength of our democracy,
I'm pointing to the direction of what I believe is the Capitol.
Right. Most likely alcohol,
and what
other
needs
drugs,
to happen in terms of people who
antidepressants,
otherwise have evidence
anti-anxiety.
themselves having a feckless quality, to show some courage, to reject the false notion that suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away, when in fact it's just reasonable. I support the Second Amendment, but it's reasonable to say we need an assault weapons ban. It's reasonable to say we.
Nobody cares about the fact that we've got a bunch of young black and brown men in prison. That argument is not working. What I suggest we do as African Americans is own this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us. Because it is a myth to say that African Americans don't want law enforcement. We do. We want our grandmothers to be able to walk to church and be safe. We want our babies to be able to walk to the park and be safe. What we don't want is racial profiling. What we don't.
Right, so you compare those first clips, and then here in 2006, she sounds incredibly coherent. So why, by 2019 and 2020, is she unable to summon the kind of coherence that she had back in 2006?
Want is excessive force. That's right. What we don't want is to have our civil liberties and civil rights be stripped, but we do want law enforcement. So let's define it in the way that works for us by saying, I want community policing. I want a police department that works in my neighborhood and in my community that reflects the mores and the culture and respects my grandmother, again, when they walk in to talk to her. I want a system of accountability in the criminal justice system that says law enforcement needs to own crime prevention as much as it talks about long sentences. Because nationally, only 18% of serious crime results in an arrest. So if I, as law enforcement, with my responsibility to keep you safe, only talk about keeping you safe by sending people...
So normally people become more skilled, more coherent, right? More impressive, more educated, more trained when they're giving their political talks. But she has fallen out of the coconut tree.
People to prison for a long time, I'm necessarily going to fall short because the vast majority of that crime's not even hitting my system. So if I'm going to keep my promise to you to keep you safe, I better talk with you about what I'm doing in terms of crime prevention, which means recognizing that people coming out of the state prisons, 60% will recidivate if we don't get them in reentry programs, if we don't get them in...
Do you think that she could give this talk today? Do you think she could get out recidivate today?
Job training, job readiness, get them in programs that deal with their substance abuse, get them in meaningful housing and employment so they don't recidivate. We could talk about it in terms of, is it the right thing to do? Of course it is. But, you know, I'm done talking about it like that. I'll just talk about it on this basis. If that person commits another crime, I have to spend $10,000 to try that felony. They sit in my county jail for $35,000 a year. I'm running a reentry program out of my office in the San Francisco DA's office that brings folks back into the community at an expense.
Right. So in 2006, she sounded very articulate, but now she can't seem to keep it up. All right. Here's a clip from Trump. Why'd you come to a town linked to white supremacy?
Who was here in 2021? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Everything about the Harris campaign is fake.
Hey, President Joe Biden. And he's going to speak in a minute, but there's a lot of love in this room for our president.
Yeah, if Kamala isn't drunk, then how do you explain the weird things that she says?
First, let me just say, I strongly believe and take very seriously that we must acknowledge that the government of the United States stole land, took land from the tribes, and that there must be a restoration of that ownership for those lands that were possessed by the tribes. So that is a value I hold very dearly and very strongly. First, let me just say, I strongly believe and take very seriously that we must acknowledge that the government of the United States stole land, took land from the tribes, and that there must be a restoration of that ownership for those lands that were possessed by the tribes. So that is a value I hold very dearly and very strongly. First, let me just say, I strongly...
Anyone familiar with alcoholism has to see that Kamala Harris has a drinking problem. She's drunk in public, on video. She's not stupid or awkward or joyful. She's drunk, day drunk, on the job, in front of the cameras, in front of kids. She's drunk. Watch the video, see for yourself. Her campaign team and Biden administration manage her the way families attempt to manage alcoholic parents. The campaign is hyper-controlling, keeping her from any situation that might expose her secret. Hence, she's not allowed to speak off script and refuses press conferences. Biden administration was unhappy with Kamala, reluctant to give her responsibility. Though the administration did not admit it publicly, aides and staff reported to the press with enough regularity it was considered a fact. The entire Joy campaign is an elaborate cover for her public drunkenness. It's the classic bum's not drunk, she's just really happy on a national scale. It's like being gaslit by dysfunctional parents into pretending our alcoholic bum aunt grandma is just fine, thank you. Keep smiling, the world is watching. If we pretend hard enough, maybe we can fool ourselves into being happy too. Look at the kids' faces, right? They know that she's drunk. And the people around her on a lot of these clips sound weird.
Just little, 1 minute out. I have 1 minute. Yeah. Kosher salt, fresh ground pepper, Maybe chop up a little thyme. And then you can mix it even with, okay, so do the salt and pepper all over it, just lather that baby up, right? With on the outside in the cavity. You could also chop up, but not with the thyme, just the salt and pepper.
I'm doing the best I can to boost the volume. I've got the boost all the way up.
Mix that up also with some thyme. You could even do a little rosemary if you want. Under the skin with some butter before you're going to cook it. So that butter will just melt in there.
But if you look at the video,
nice
she looks
bottle of
hammered.
Cheap white wine to baste with butter. Yes, hi.
Okay.
Yes.
Economic policies last week. Yeah. Can you explain how you're going to pay for those? And can you give us a sense of what other policies you want to unveil going forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, you just look at it in terms of what we are talking about, for example, around children and the child tax credit and extending the EITC. It's at $6,000 for the first year of a child's life. The return on that investment in terms of what that will do and what it will pay for will be tremendous. We've seen it when we did it in the first year of our administration. We reduced child poverty by over 50%. So that's a lot of the work. And then what we're doing in terms of the tax credits, we know that there's a great return on that investment. And when we increase home ownership in America, what that means in terms of increasing the tax base, not to mention property tax base, what that does to fund schools, again, return on investment. I think it's a mistake for any person.
About someone getting a DUI arrest and then his campaign repeatedly misleading and giving false statements to the public about it. So let's just go to the facts of that 1995 arrest first, okay? Walz was speeding over 95 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. He failed a field sobriety test that was administered by a state trooper. He then admitted in court that he had been drinking. He was transported to a local hospital for a blood test that showed he had a blood alcohol level of 0.128, and that was above the state legal limit. He then took a plea deal where he pled guilty to a reckless driving charge. Now, those are the facts. That's from police records. That's from court records. And that all is completely undisputed.
All right. So that is clear, the idea of what happened. What did his congressional campaign actually say happened?
So let's fast forward to 2006. He's in a tight congressional race. He is running for Congress. This was a Republican-held district that he was trying to flip. And then a local Republican blog puts up that he had this arrest for drunk driving. Now, I'm going to give you sort of the bullets of what his campaign said about that. The campaign citing Walz claimed that he had not been drinking and driving. They attributed his failed field sobriety test to hearing loss from his time in the National Guard, not alcohol. The campaign falsely said that he drove himself to the station, that he was allowed to drive home. They said the DUI charges were dropped because they were unfounded. And the campaign even faulted this trooper for saying that he didn't realize that Walz had hearing impairment. They claimed a judge actually chastised the state trooper for it. Now take a look at just one statement that his campaign put out. They said he, quote, couldn't understand what the trooper was telling him during the field sobriety test, and the trooper refused to speak up. The DUI charges were dropped for a reason. The judge would not have dismissed them if there were anything to him. Tim drove to the station that night and drove home afterwards. I don't think the trooper would have allowed that if there had been a problem. So none of what they said in that 2006 race was true at all, as we saw in just looking at those details of the 1995 arrest.
Your reporting sort of points out this is
Okay, that was CNN. So
their patent so that we will take over. And yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. It's the question is, do you have the will to do it? I have the will to do it. I will snatch their patent.
Strong in terms of what it does.
okay, that looks.
Oh,
like
it's so
AI
strong.
video. Okay.
I think I was, 22 when I started that work. I learned that with the swipe of my pen, I could charge someone with the lowest level offense. And because of the swipe of my pen, that person could be arrested,
They could sit in jail for at least 48 hours. They could lose time from work and their family maybe lose their job. They'd have to come out of their own pocket to help hire a lawyer. They'd lose standing in their community. All because of the swipe of my pen. Weeks later, I could dismiss the charges. But they're...
Okay, so that was, she sounds pretty good there.
Doritos.
That's when they go to a grocery store to try to find out about inflation. They have to film the spot
Ah,
twice.
Dougie, there they are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know you want those.
You see corn nuts over there,
Isn't this
too?
it?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, that's the big. There you go. That's fun. You see corn nuts over there?
And even USB outlets next to every seat. I mean, come on, imagine. You can charge your phone on your way home from work. That's good stuff. The bus has...
Okay, so drunk Kamala is steaming on TikTok.
Of all in which you live and what came before you. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you. You think you just fell out.
There's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch. Turn that off. And as a woman, there's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch. Turn that off.
Okay. Kamala goes on a confusing rant talking about democracy. Not a good look when everyone in X is calling
Country
you
of
drunk.
ours in terms of what we stand for around the globe as a democracy. As a democracy, we know there's a duality to the nature of democracy. On the one hand, incredible strength when it is intact. What it does for its people to protect and defend their rights, their liberty, and their freedom. Incredibly strong and incredibly fragile. That's what our election. And he's going to speak in a minute, but there's a lot of love in this room for our president. Our extraordinary President Joe Biden.
Okay, is this Kamala too intoxicated to stand up? This was fact-checked by Snopes as not true.
So tonight, I am asking you, if you stood with us in 2020, 24,
I never thought Kamala Harris is drunk was either true or funny. I just assumed she was easily confused. However, she sounds a little bit tipsy. Yeah, absolutely hammered in this video.
Maybe top up a little time.
Right.
And just
Played this one already.
Even...
Is Kamala Harris. Yeah, getting loose at a backyard party.
Here comes two.
Whoops, that's AI video.
I think it is important to look at folks like Haley and Kelly and also say we're going to take note of the fact that during the pandemic, over 2 million people, 2 million women people.
Okay, so just a collection of more and more clips. All right, Trump campaign post about Kamala Harris serious drinking problems. Rumor on Gateway Pundit. Trump campaign went public Saturday night with the allegation of rumors about Kamala Harris having a serious drinking problem. James Blair, political director for the Trump 2024 presidential campaign, posted on Twitter. A lot of rumors out there about Kamala having a serious drinking problem. Apparently coming into focus as campaign heats up. Blair was retweeted by Trump campaign advisor Alex Brusewitz, indicating campaign approval. Video clip of Harris on Thursday introducing Joe Biden made some wonder if she has a drinking problem. Is the DNC struggling to keep Kamala Harris sober? Addiction is real. She's got a long road ahead. In August 2020, when Kamala Harris was picked by Joe Biden to be his vice presidential running mate, the San Francisco Chronicle reported on Harris's fondness for booze with the headline, Kamala Harris, the only major candidate who drinks booze and has great taste in wine. Also, August 2022, Washingtonian magazine reported on Harris being a regular at DC wine bars. An article headline, Kamala Harris knows her wine. The rumors about Harris's drinking from an anonymous account on X, 169,000 followers, went viral after being posted after midnight Saturday, has nearly 3 million views. Alleging Kamala's aides are having trouble keeping her sober, which is why she's only doing the scheduled rallies. Every time she gets off the plane, she's apparently drunk, so that's why they are hiding her from the press. Same poster claimed that Kamala Harris was intoxicated when she gave her word salad remarks about American hostages being released on August 1st. Apparently, Kamala was told not to speak during this event because she was too intoxicated, but she did anyway. The video clip of Harris at an appearance in the Philippines on November 21, 2022 caused another poster to question her sobriety. Kamala has the fun alcoholic day drinker at the pool vibe. I'm all for it. It's fun. You typically don't want those people also calling in airstrikes. Earlier this year, Kamala Harris hosted a booze-fueled house party at the vice president's residence for black college students. Let me turn off the volume here. Okay, that's nice. He seems to enjoy the odd drink. Right, his
in
commentary
Milwaukee,
magazine,
and a whole spate of polls showing that Kamala has closed the race, but is not running away with the race. And I think actually it's now time to start wondering whether or not, given the fact that she has had the best political month since Trump's best political month, the month before, she has had this great political month. She's not running away with the race. Like a dynamic like this, if I told you that she was ahead by 5, you would say, well, that makes sense given what the last 27 days have been like.
Okay, here is Mike Malice breaking down Kamala's 3 phases of wine mom.
Right. If you're going after Officer Harris, you're either racist or sexist or ableist.
Right.
So they will use...
Ableist.
Yeah, because she's a retard. She's literally retarded. I mean... Ukraine is a country in Europe, and Russia is another country, and a powerful country, and Russia invaded Ukraine, and that's wrong.
What's really important is what can be unburdened by what has been.
I think of her as America's wine mom, because bitch seems like she's 3 deep by noon, and she's got the 3 phases of wine mom. She's got happy drunk. Oh my God, this cereal's got a rabbit on it. It's so great. Cackling, cackling, cackling. Then there is trying to drunk at work, where you're trying to make sense, but you don't. Space is around us all and unites us all and inspires us all. And then there's I'm being stern so you don't realize how plastered I am, and I'm making a point. Dr. Little Girl was me. Now I'm going to go upstairs and don't knock on the door because I'm going to pass out. So those are her 3 ways she talks, and those are the wine mom phases.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
Okay, that's a really good clip here from Michael Malice.
Well, for George Soros to be anti-Semitic, you're anti-Semitic.
Right.
If you're going after Officer Harris, you're either racist or sexist or ableist.
Right.
So they will use...
Ableist.
Yeah, because she's a retard. She's literally retarded. I mean, Ukraine is a country in Europe, and Russia is another country, and a powerful country, and Russia invaded Ukraine, and that's wrong.
What's really important is what can be unburdened by what has been.
I think of her as America's wine mom, because bitch seems like she's 3 deep by noon, and she's got the 3 phases of wine mom. She's got happy drunk. Oh my God, this cereal's got a rabbit on it. It's so great. Cackling, cackling, cackling. Then there is drunk at work, where you're trying to make sense, but you don't. Space is around us all and unites us all and inspires us all. And then there's I'm being stern so you don't realize how plastered I am, and I'm making a point. That little girl was me. Now I'm going to go upstairs and don't knock on the door because I'm going to pass out. So those are her 3 ways she talks, and those are the wine mom phases.
Do you think they have her medicated? Because there was a guy that was speculating that some of the things that she says, the way she's sort of disconnected sometimes, and
I don't know
she goes
what,
on these rambles, that it's
I don't
indicative of certain anti-anxiety medication. I do not know if this is true. See if you can find that, because really that shouldn't say that about our future president.
Yeah, our future. Yeah,
she's gonna win.
No, she's not.
She can win.
She absolutely can win. I do not think she's going to win, because the more she talks, like in 2020, how bad do you have to be that you can't even make Iowa? She couldn't even compete with the mayor of South Bend.
I feel like we are in this very bizarre time where people are giving in to the bullshit in a way that I never suspected people would before.
Okay, Scott Adams has posted quite a bit about Kamala Harris being drunk. So let's scroll through his timeline. Says, my only question is about the credibility of these videos. Are any of them tweaked? If not, we have a problem here. So he's made about 6 tweets about Kamala's drinking problem. The Democrat argument I'm hearing for why Harris is not inebriated in the various videos we have seen is that the media hid Biden's dementia, and that means Republicans are suffering confirmation bias about Harris's drinking. Can't believe I'm looking at what Scott Adams is posting. All right, here he is with his daughter.
The economic speech she gave was a major disaster when she had to make an actual decision about her vice president, passing over Josh Shapiro for Tim Walz. I believe also a disaster. So
yeah, I noticed at the events you don't drink, and you don't drink or smoke, right?
I don't drink or smoke. No.
You never have.
No, I never have. I had a great brother who taught me a lesson: don't drink, and he said don't smoke. He smoked and he drank, and he was a great guy. He was a handsome, very handsome guy.
Is he older? He was older,
quite a bit older, yeah. And he had a problem with alcohol and smoke a lot. But I tell people no drugs, no drinking, no cigarettes.
Yeah,
I tell that to my kids all the time. I'd say no drugs, no drinking, no smoke. And
it was tough.
He'd always tell me, he'd say never. So he was, really old enough that you would look up to somebody. And I'd
if you're going after Officer Harris, you're either
yeah, I admired so much about him. He had so much going. He had the look. He had
his name?
Unbelievable personality, like an incredible personality.
What was his name, Donald?
His name was Fred Trump. And he had a problem with alcohol. He got addicted to it because they say alcohol is tougher than drugs to get off of. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I'm in recovery, actually. I've been in recovery, so like most of the last 10 years.
From alcohol?
From drugs and alcohol.
So which is worse?
For me, drugs is the problem, but if I have a drink, then it's tougher for me to prevent myself from getting it.
It sets off a chain.
Yeah.
But which is harder to quit? I've heard alcohol is harder to quit than drugs, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can only imagine because it's probably more readily available.
More readily, and it's social, and you're sitting and everyone's drinking and all.
Yeah, rarely do you go to a dinner and everybody's eating Xanaxes or something, for appetizers. Right. Usually people are having like a minute.
So remember, I watched the Mark Halperin video August 4. Then I made a video saying that I suspect that the Trump campaign has a lot of damaging information on Kamala Harris. They're going to wait until the Democratic convention when she's officially nominated, and then they'll release it because it'll be much more difficult for the Democrats to remove her from the ticket. And perhaps this severe drug alcohol addiction thing might be the story that Mark Halperin was hinting at back on August 4th.
And, you know, it meant julep or something a little fancier, Negroni I just learned about.
Right.
But yeah.
So you have a problem with that then?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's been in my family. My family, it's like, yeah.
Can you stay away from it?
Yeah, I've done a good job. I mean,
so how long have you been off?
I go to recovery meetings. I've been off most recently a little over 2 years.
Do you ever go back on?
Yeah, I've had stints where I go back on
and you don't control it.
It's tough. It goes downhill pretty quick.
No kidding. So you
think it's going to be easy?
You think you're controlling it?
And then you're you're doing go-kart and racing with hookers and stuff. It gets bad.
It's just not to do it, right?
Right. So then in the end, you're like, I have to not do it. Did you see, like, with your brother? Could you see it or anything? Like, man,
I was amazed because he had so much going, he had everything going. I think it happened in college at a fraternity maybe, or I don't know, somewhere along the line it happened. And all of a sudden, this is not unique. This is a very common story, unfortunately. But and then the family would see it and start to notice it. And it didn't get better. It didn't get better. I was amazed. He lived for so long in bad conditions, in terms of, I was amazed that his body could hold out. It held out and it had bad moments. But his body was unbelievably strong that it could withstand this.
Yeah, it's a body. Your body's just so resilient.
Yeah.
Do you remember the last time that you saw him or spent with him?
I do, and
I'm sorry to ask you about it. Is it all right?
Yeah, no. It's the reason it's good talking about it is it might help other people. If it helps one other person, it's worth the conversation.
We talk about that stuff a lot on our podcast.
Yeah.
A lot of our audience struggles or has struggled with alcoholism, addiction, intimacy disorders, all types of stuff. So it's like it's pretty kind of normal conversation. But
the interesting thing is, and I tell people, so I never had a cigarette, and I've never had a glass of alcohol. And my brother was incredible. He would tell me, because he knew he had a problem, and he'd say, don't ever drink, don't ever smoke. He'd always add smoking, because he did smoke a lot, which is, not very healthy. But he'd say, don't ever drink, don't ever drink. He'd tell me every time. I said, don't ever drink, because he knew he had this addiction. And I never had a glass of alcohol. Never, ever did I have a glass of alcohol because of him. And I would say that if I did drink, I could, conceivably be the type of personality that would have, like you, that would have a problem. But I never had. And the only thing I say to people is, if too late for the people that you're talking about, but if you don't drink, you don't miss it. I mean, I don't even think about alcohol or
right. It's
anything.
not a part of your world.
I don't think about cigarettes. I don't think about any of that. If you don't take drugs or if you don't have alcohol, it's real easy not to drink it. It's when I had a friend who went to the Wharton School of Finance with me. He was a very smart guy.
Where is it, Wharton School?
That's in Philadelphia. That's at Penn.
Oh, yeah. Rocky.
Right. And it's a great school, great business school. And it's part of the University of Pennsylvania, the business school.
It's nice down there.
Yeah.
My friend's brother went there or something.
Well,
we ate near there once.
Then he was smart because it's a great school. But this person that I met, he hated the taste of scotch. Hated it. Couldn't stand it. But he insisted on having it because he felt it was important to be able to drink. I said, no, just don't drink. He said, to be successful in business, you have to sort of interact and you have to drink. And I said, don't do it. Anyway, he became an unbelievable alcoholic, uncontrollable alcoholic.
Oh, I thought you meant like one of the best.
Yeah, and he died. He was but he hated the taste of scotch.
And he still
did he couldn't live without it. Wow. Literally.
Well, I think I notice a lot of in the recovery rooms and stuff, it's a lot of people that they're missing something inside of them. And so they take on so they want to try and fill it up with something else.
Yeah.
Do you remember the last time you spent with your brother?
I do. And he'd have periods where he'd get sick, very sick. And we thought we'd lose him or we lost him. Then he'd get better. And that happened 5 or 6 times. I mean, you thought you lost him. And then he got better. And it was amazing. I mean, he was, certainly very strong in that sense. And I just tell people it's so tragic. Don't drink. Just don't drink.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have a problem. Like even you, if you didn't drink, you would never, but you probably maybe wouldn't be successful like you are. You know, it's part of your story, right?
It's helped me a lot. Yeah, because I don't know what would happen probably. I think it's just too risky.
It is risky.
What's something that you miss about him? Or like that? Like what's something that you miss about him, Fred?
Well, he was wise in a sense. I mean, think of it. He's got this problem, and it was very important for him to convey to me not to have this problem. And I couldn't have been successful if I had that problem.
Yeah.
If I had that problem, and I think maybe I'm a personality type where I could have had the problem if I drank. But if you don't drink, you're never going to have it. I mean, I don't miss when I see somebody light up a cigarette and just they're in heaven. I don't miss that at all.
It's weird. It's so it's very Native American too.
Isn't it crazy?
Okay, let's spin down here through Scott Adams' Twitter feed. Let's see what more he's got on drunk Kamala. So he's made about half a dozen posts. Man, Scott Adams is incredibly prolific. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate Nicole Shanahan says the Kennedy campaign is considering dropping out of the race and endorsing Donald Trump. My God, I haven't paid any attention to Scott Adams for years. You have to scroll. Hillary Clinton brags about the Democrats' weaponization of the justice system against Donald Trump and then nods and smirks as the crowd chants, "Lock him up."
And I am the president of SEIU, representing 2 million service and care workers.
I can't take a voice. Okay, come on, man. Is this drunk Kamala?
And what needs to happen in terms of people who otherwise have evidenced themselves having a feckless quality to show some courage to reject the false notion that suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away, when in fact it's just reasonable. I support the Second Amendment, but it's reasonable to say we need an assault weapons ban. It's reasonable to say we need universal background checks, that we need red flag laws. It's reasonable to say that if you want to deal with violence in the community, you also got to understand it's not only about mass shooting situations, which are horrific, and it's about everyday gun violence. I'm pointing to the direction of what I believe is the Capitol. And what needs to happen in terms of people who otherwise have evidenced themselves having a feckless quality to show some courage to reject the false notion that suggests you're either in favor.
Okay, let's see. What else? Not making up my opinion. She looks drunk to me in multiple videos. Anyone who's been around drunks recognize it. See all the comments. If all the videos are fake or there is some other explanation besides joy, I'm open to the fact check. Alex Berenson says the Kamala is drunk thing is the latest sign that right has lost its mind. Okay, let me play a little bit from the podcast of Commentary Magazine.
Evening as bored and as late as the evening of Trump's speech, whatever that was 2 years ago, 3 weeks ago. I can't even remember now, but it seems like it was an era ago, but
okay, here we go.
Or whatever, and she's not. I mean, she has Democratic enthusiasm is now back at the level that you probably would have expected it to be at the week before the election, when people come home and they're obviously all Democrats are going to basically vote Democrat. It's rare that they don't, and certainly that they would cross the aisle and vote for Trump. It's just that it's happened now on an accelerated schedule because of her entry into the race and the depressing element of Biden's presence now being gone from the race. And so we may really now have the equilibrium established, which is that.
All right, Daily Mail out of Great Britain, which publishes first on a lot of American news stories, which are too spicy for the American news media. Conservatives claim these clips show Kamala Harris is giving speeches while drunk. Conservatives and even a Donald Trump campaign official have claimed Kamala Harris appears drunk during speaking engagements. Pundits on the right are now suggesting booze is to blame for Harris's lunatic laughter, her word salads when she veers off script. One commentator posted 2 clips of Harris. She bursts into laughter after uttering the question, "You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?" After a clip of the speech went viral earlier this year, it became a popular internet meme. Another clip was posted by multiple commentators Sunday showing the vice president giving a speech in Pennsylvania where she repeats the word democracy 3 times in 30 seconds. Colin Rugg, not a good look when everybody on X is calling you a drunk. The Kamala is a drunk theory makes more sense every second that I think about it. And James Blair, political director of the Trump 2024 campaign, says a lot of rumors out there about Kamala having a serious drinking problem, apparently coming into focus as the campaign heats up.
It's a slog from now until Election Day, with the 7 swing states bouncing 2 points this way, 2 points that way, 1 point this way, depending on how pollsters model the electorate and all of that. So nobody is running away with this race yet. And so also we don't know anything about the convention, so as yet.
So first, we should say that the DNC is taking place in Chicago, not Milwaukee. Milwaukee is where the RNC took place last month. And I think that's important because one of the major questions I have going into the convention is, will the DNC house band be as good as Six Wire, the house band during the RNC, which I now follow on social media because they're great.
They were great.
And
major cultural figure, and the Democrats and the Republicans pull Lee Greenwood and Hulk Hogan, and as good as Hulk Hogan was, by the way, as a performance, and people underrate. I was seeing that kind of contempt on Twitter this weekend for, oh, Hulk Hogan. For some reason, it resurfaced, and then I watched some of it again, and it was really kind of a brilliant populist political moment. That thing where he's ripping off his shirt and being Hulk Hogan, and he said, "My name is not Hulk Hogan. My name is Terry, and I'm here. I don't like to be political.
I'm an entertainer.
I'm an entertainer, and I like to be political because I have people who like me in all parts of the political. But when I saw what happened to Donald Trump, and in Pennsylvania, I said I have to come off the sidelines."
So I think the fact that we are likely to have Beyonce or someone of that magnitude grace the DNC underscores the fact that the Democrats are high on their own supply, and they have been for the past 3 weeks. And to read the coverage of the DNC this week is just gag-inducing.
Okay, here is Kamala Harris speaking at a town hall to Filipino youth.
Never let anyone take your joy from you. I call myself a joyful warrior. Right? Never let anyone take your joy from you. You do what you gotta do. And isn't that a wonderful way to live? To know you have purpose. Never.
Okay, back to commentary.
Kamala's arrival, all the unity, the joy. Biden is going to be treated to a hero's welcome tonight before they give him the hook and pack him into Air Force One and send him to Santa Ynez, at Mach 5 to get him as far away as possible from their nominee.
Yeah, they are literally sending him as close to the ice floe as they could get while keeping him in warm weather near a beach. He's going to Santa Ynez, California for 4 days. And the ice floe is obviously in Alaska, but he's way closer than he would be in Chicago.
Well, and he's still supposed to be the president. I mean, I get the president gets a vacation.
Okay, we're going to get to that. We are going
we keep
to get
forgetting
to that.
this.
Okay. So,
first, let me just say, I strongly believe and take very seriously that we must acknowledge that the government of the United States stole land, took land from the tribes, and that there must be a restoration of that ownership for those lands that were possessed by the tribes. So that is a value I hold very dearly and very strongly. First,
Yeah, it feels that there is something to this Xanax alcohol problem.
Like, we're right-wingers obsessed with the media and all of that. But I do want to highlight one reporter in particular, if I may. Not that I want to, sort of like demonize somebody. But Jonathan Martin of Politico is becoming the Parson Weems of the Kamala Harris for president bid. Now, Parson Weems, you may remember, was the 19th century clergyman who wrote the biography of George Washington, in which George Washington said, "I can never tell a lie. I chopped down that cherry tree," and all of that. And Martin's coverage and his Twitter feed is hagiographic and dismissive of concerns in a manner that I find almost staggeringly Breitbartian in its reversals. And it just reminded me of the fact that Jonathan Martin basically started his career at National Review, and that, even 15 years after he started his career at National Review, he must have some feeling that he needs to scrub and scrub and scrub his reputation until he is spotlessly anodyne to everybody in the Harris camp and in the Democratic Party ambit, because that is his bread and butter now, and Politico's and all of these people who are now relying on, well, I guess Politico doesn't exactly rely on the subscription model, but I mean, they are relying on the enthusiasm of their readership to maintain their standing with them. And now you are with Kamala, or you are MAGA,
I think we just never appreciated how demoralized Democrats felt having Joe Biden as their nominee. And switching nominees has just unleashed this pent-up energy, anti-Trump exhilaration that's contributing to her rise in the polls. So when you see, like in the AP NORC poll this morning, her favorable rating jumped 9 points in the space of a month for no other reason than that she is now the Democratic nominee. Something psychological is at work here. It's not an empirical phenomenon. And in fact, every time she opens her mouth, every time she is asked a question or gives an answer or delivers a policy statement like she did last week, we are reminded, any objective empirical analyst is reminded why she is a flawed politician. So
she did a little policy talking yesterday. She did a teeny thing where she talked about not price controls, but what she wanted to do with the economy.
Right.
And I was trying to...
And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because, it comes in the morning. we have to find ways to also express the way we feel about the moment in terms of just having language and a connection to how people are experiencing life. And I think about it in that way, too. It is a reflection of...
And comment that Kamala laughs like she has imposter syndrome, which strikes me as pretty accurate. All right, let's get a burst here from
Tim
Fox.
Walz set to take the stage for DNC Night 3. Kamala's running mate, who walks around like he's got ants in his pants, just got busted lying for the millionth time. But who's counting? But Dems say, it's just your crazy old uncle.
Tim Walz is just a good and decent man. In many ways, what we saw and what we loved with Doug Emhoff on the stage is what we're going to see similarly with Tim Walz. I mean, he's that uncle that you just want to hang out with and just, he's always there. And whenever he comes over to the house, you just get so excited because you're like, what's next?
Yeah, he's the uncle who comes over to the house and you get really excited, Jesse. All the kids are like, oh, the uncle's here. We're going to go play outside.
Yeah, let's go jump on his lap and tickle me. Tell me a story. I don't know, Greg. He looks like the next contestant on The Price is Right. You're like, come on down. He's like, whoa, whoa. This is a guy you can't trust. Greg, you know better than anybody, men need to be composed. Mm-hmm. Men who make wild gesticulations cannot be trusted.
True.
You have to keep yourself together and hold yourself with a little dignity and stature, or else people think you're suspicious.
I bet he has ice cream in public. And uses a straw.
Oh, he's a straw guy for sure.
By the way, there is an exception to Jesse's rule, and it's Rip Taylor, R.I.P., Dana, what do you think he's going to talk about tonight?
Well, Rich Lowry, a couple weeks ago when he was announced, said this is an MSNBC's pundit's idea of what a normal person looks like.
True.
And so
comment in the chat, everyone's got that uncle. I remember I had a girlfriend who confided in me that her relationship with her uncle was never the same after he asked her for a blowjob. He was highly intoxicated at the time and seemed to damage the quality of their relationship.
To be honest, I don't know. We were glad to have him on America's Newsroom, and a couple of times, and one of the times he came on was the morning after the disastrous Biden debate. So I think he's a very loyal Democrat. He's willing to come on the shows, which we appreciate, and he's got a lot of introduction to do. I am very much looking forward to all of the debates, but in particular the one that Walz and Vance will do on October 1st.
That is going to be fun. Jessica, I'll give you two choices. What will Walz address tonight? Lying about his military service or lying about the DUI cover-up?
I'm going to go with none of the above. Is that C?
No, there was no C. I didn't have room to put in a C.
Okay.
All of the above, though, would have worked.
None. That's what I said first. I led with none of the above.
I said all.
Yeah. So all of the attacks, everything that people have been throwing at him, it's just not working. His favorability keeps climbing, so he's at +11 now nationally, and J.D. Vance is at -17. And they're going to have someone who served with him speaking tonight. I think that's going to be incredibly powerful. But the latest round of attacks about whether he had IVF or...
Okay, let's play a little bit more from Commentary Magazine.
Figure out what it was that she sounds like that to us maybe we're allergic to that others might go for, why she did okay in California, although, of course, we keep now reading about how she won elections in California based on flukes. There's an interesting story, which I didn't know about, that she was probably on her way to losing the attorney general's race. And then the guy that she was running against made this insane blunder in the course of their debate where he said, yes, he was going to take two salaries. He was going to take his pension and his attorney general's salary because the attorney general's salary was so scandalously low. And apparently he earned it. Everyone in the state's jaw dropped. Was like a moment, one of those moments where you watched somebody take his car and steer it straight into a wall at 100 miles an hour, and that was the end of him. She would not have been the attorney. None of this would have happened. History is contingent. If he had just kept his mouth shut about how he was bitter.
She's Chauncey Gardner.
That is, yeah. So Chauncey Gardner, just for people who don't know, is the lead character in the book by Jerzy Kaczynski and the movie by Hal Ashby called Being There, played by Peter Sellers in Being There, who is a gardener, who is a what we call him, a mentally incapacitated gardener who's grown up in a house in Northwest DC and worked on the garden for his stepfather or something like that. His stepfather dies. He just walks down, in the movie, walks down 16th Street to the White House, somehow gets in the White House. And by the end of the movie, not only is he president of the United States, but he also literally walks on water on the reflecting pool. Out of nowhere. And all he says is things like, we must tend the garden. Everyone goes, oh my God, he's brilliant. He's so insane.
And I like to watch. I like to watch.
Yes, yeah, because all he does is.
Okay, that's John Podhoretz and the Commentary Magazine crew. This is Megyn Kelly with the Ruthless crew.
I did raise the Jeffrey Toobin masturbatory incident with Victor Davis Hanson, so there's really no bridge I won't cross to get the story of it.
I'm glad to see fair and balanced all the way.
Yeah. See, I love it. I respect you guys. I respect you, and I don't even have to be drunk to do it. I don't have to be drunk. I do it stone cold sober. Maybe the same cannot be said for our potential next president. Have you guys seen the memes questioning whether Kamala Harris is drunk or just a dunce? Is she drunk or dumb? Is she drunk or disorderly? I don't know. I'm of two minds on it. I've seen some clips where she's a little slurry. You know, I can see how she's a little, and you're like, what? But some of the evidence, I was like, I don't know. We put together the montage of the clips that have been circulating as the alleged evidence that she's a boozer. And you guys, we report, you decide. Watch.
You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke.
Yeah. There is this wonderful word that has a great meaning, and it's called hypothesis, which means that you have an idea, and then it is well accepted, it will be tested.
Has Wi-Fi.
and even USB outlets next to every seat. I mean, come on, imagine. You can charge your phone on your way home from work. That's good stuff.
I'm pointing to the direction of what I believe is the Capitol.
He's going to speak in a minute, but there's a lot of love in this room for our president.
Give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Go round and round. Just say, hey, Joe, instead of saying no, we can't, let's say yes, we can. I call myself a joyful warrior. Right? Never let anyone take your joy from you.
So I can't say, you know, I'm not a doctor or whatever, I guess, or an officer on the side of the road making a walk a line on this,
or a substance abuse counselor.
I just know.
Right. Do you have to be a doctor or a law enforcement officer or a substance abuse counselor to get a read on whether someone's got a drinking problem?
When I have like 8 or 9 bourbons, I think everything I'm saying is really
profound,
smart, and funny. And like, if I were being videoed, I'm probably the only person laughing.
Yeah.
And I bet it looks a lot like that.
I don't know, man. I'm also not a doctor, but I think she's dumb. I really do. I think that's the diagnosis, is stupidity.
There's also sort of like
Dense,
a stoner mentality to her.
A little bit.
Like the maybe a gummy. That's good stuff. Like,
Yeah.
like that's like a high schooler with munchies at the Taco Bell drive-in window at 3 a.m.
I'd be like, listen, man, there's a USB charger in your car.
Bro,
It's amazing.
Bad stuff.
It's true. Like you're gonna hear from in a minute.
Yeah.
Joe Biden. Okay, so it's an ongoing problem. There's no way she's drunk at all these public appearances. Somebody would notice. But she
Work
does
for the
have
Kennedys.
like a
No,
wine bar
but she-
named after her or something like that. I don't know, like a kind of a theme, whatever. Here she is in Pennsylvania this weekend, and this one made the rounds. People are like, "What is she saying?" And as you'll see in the second soundbite we'll play, it's what we call a pattern. Okay, listen to her in Pennsylvania this past weekend talking about democracy.
Our election is about understanding the importance of this beautiful country of ours in terms of what we stand for around the globe as a democracy. As a democracy, we know there's a duality to the nature of democracy. On the one hand, incredible strength when it is intact, incredibly strong, and incredibly fragile.
Yeah. I just you
This is a
make a
favorite
good
of
point.
hers.
She can't be drunk at every single one of these things, but she can be dumb at every single one of those things. That's
it's
the
a talent.
control.
Reminds
Watch.
me of like, oh, you
She's
got
not
more?
done.
Let's touch them.
Hold. She's not done. Watch. She loves
The
this one.
nature of democracy is there are two sides to it in terms of the nature of it. There's a duality.
There's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, oh, it's so strong. And it is very fragile.
The nature of democracy, there's a duality to it, has two sides to it.
Democracy, there's a duality to it. On the one hand, a democracy, when it is intact, is very strong. On the other hand, and here is the duality, democracy is also extremely fragile. It will only be as strong as the willingness of its people to fight for it.
Okay, let's get Kip onto the show. Kip, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, how's my favorite therapist / news aggregator doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. Yesterday I was thinking about joggers, gypsies, and your tribe, and it got me thinking about the artist, the misunderstood artist from Linz. And I was just thinking, how many, no matter who it is, how many of a certain type of people does Luke Ford have to run across before he says it's okay to say, I don't like them. I don't want to spend time with them.
Oh,
Is
so
there a,
yeah. So
you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So we're not going to name groups, but yeah, I have had a disproportionate number of negative experiences with one particular group, trying to incite fights, threatening, cursing, just over the top behavior, evading fare, and so I have a lifetime of disproportionate number of negative experiences with a group. So it mainly depends on, is it an in-group or out-group? If it's an out-group, then I'm much quicker to make negative judgments about the group, which doesn't mean that every individual I meet in that group that I'm just totally close to. But on the other hand, if it's within my in-group and my in-group has certain problems, all right, I will just try to keep a distance from those members of my in-group. But I've never gotten to a stage, for example, where I've had overwhelmingly negative feelings about Australians or Anglos or Protestants or Jews. So those have been my primary in-groups. And so I've never had the experience where the majority of my interactions with any of those groups have been negative.
You've never, political correctness has never made you feel so oppressed that Luke's final solution was necessary, at least to be drawn up on paper? You're saying it hasn't gotten to that yet?
No. It never even occurred to me for a final solution. Now,
I was trying to be funny there, but you get it.
Yeah, I've had negative interactions with certain groups. So in certain contexts, I'll keep an eye out on. So different groups not only have different strengths, they also have different weaknesses. So in different contexts, I will be more or less skeptical of certain groups based on my previous experiences.
How, I mean, you're the podcaster here, not me. In 2024, have you just learned to confine your speech, or is political correctness so oppressive that you notice it on a day-to-day basis where we won't even talk about groups? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. You know, it wasn't like that in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And you like comedy. Can't you see the correlation where restricting speech has meant things aren't really funny that much with comedians anymore because they feel so confined they can't really say it the way they feel it?
Yeah. So, for example, it was obvious that Joe Biden was senile, but because senile is a dirty word, that people weren't even able to think the reality of Joe Biden's senility. So, yeah, I would prefer more unfiltered speech. But do I feel oppressed by it? I think I probably walk around with a sense of oppression that may vary from, say, 1 out of 10 in intensity to 3 out of 10. I don't tend to walk around with a high sense of oppression. There are preferences I have for how I'd prefer the world to be, but I'm not burning with rage, except on the rarest of occasions.
Yeah. One of our things we go back and forth about is persuasion, and propaganda, and me thinking it's all around you and it's vicious and it's effective, and you thinking not so much. People are too smart for that. And I just wanted to get an honest feedback from you of just basic things like with women wearing makeup. What do you think that is at its base form? Why do women wear makeup?
Because they feel better about themselves, just the same way that I would feel bad about myself if I was going into an office and knowing that I smelled. Or I bought a new shirt on Amazon and there's just the smallest defect in the shirt. And it bothered me because I was kind of torn whether or not to throw it away. So I feel better when I'm dressed up and I don't smell bad. I've showered. I'm looking professional in professional circumstances. So I feel better. And I would assume that women, that their looks are more important than they are for men. I would just assume that they feel better, that they feel more presentable and looking their best. I think most people, men and women, are going to feel stronger when you're looking your best, right? You've put your best foot forward, and people don't want to be seen usually as haggard or a mess.
Right. I would think maybe with women, I think they probably do makeup to try to persuade men. But when it comes to like their outfits and whatnot, you notice 5-6 days of the week, they'll be dressed in a certain way. And I think they're actually doing that to, for the sake of, you think it's for the sake of themselves. I think you're underestimating what women do for the sake of other women in the forms of their dress. And then, of course, 1 or 2 nights a week, they'll dress like a whore. And they're dressing for men on those nights or whatever. You agree, disagree with that?
Right. So we inculcate other people's reactions into our own reactions. So certainly we take other people's feedback into consideration, and we want to look our best. Now, I don't think that many women over the age of 25 deliberately dress to look like whores. Most women over the age of 25 can't pull it off. And I noticed that most women seem to have a pretty accurate sense of their own appeal in terms of looks. So usually women with bad legs don't wear short skirts. You have to be a really trashy woman to wear a short skirt when you've got unattractive legs. So if a woman's in a relationship and she's satisfied with the relationship, I don't think she's going out there to try to attract men. But there's a middle ground where she wants to look her best, and she doesn't want people thinking that she's some old bag.
Ever since, speaking of looking like shit, you made me think of that Fetterman dude.
Yeah.
And
John Fetterman.
And I'm telling you what, now this may seem strange to you, but I wonder all the time, how often does Dr. Oz like reach for the gun in his nightstand and think about ending it all, and then he shuts the nightstand and say, I'll give it another week. You know what I mean? Because like, that's a unique loss there. You know what I mean? He lost to somebody that ain't even willing to play the game, ain't even willing to put a shirt and tie on. Well, he comes out in board shorts. You get what I'm saying? With a bad case of don't give a fuck. And Dr. Oz couldn't even beat him. How often you think Dr. Oz thinks about like the magnitude of that loss?
Probably moderately often, but I don't think it ever reduces him to suicidal ideation, because Dr. Oz has been a semi-con man for years. Peddling the most ridiculous cures, and so I think he's got an exorbitant sense of self, and I think he's probably even drew some strength from coming reasonably close. I don't know, winning the Republican nomination is probably an adventure for him.
Yeah, Oprah had a whole collection of con men orbiting around her. She's never paid a price for that. Is that because of her skin color, Luke Ford?
No, it's because of her genre. You don't expect more from Oprah, or if she were white, it'd be the same thing. The #1 fitness podcast is by a con man, Andrew Huberman from Stanford University. So the #1 podcast overall for years is Joe Rogan, who's another just a complete blithering idiot. So often that which is popular is the most ridiculous.
Montel Williams. On one hand, I liked his personality and the fact that he was an ex-Marine like me, but on the other hand, he had them crazy ass ridiculous, that redheaded lady there that would say she was speaking to people, spirits in the other world or whatever. And so you're giving fraudsters a platform. You know what I'm saying? And so this wasn't unique to Oprah, but a lot of them were bad about that. Any thoughts on that? How seems like none of them paid a price for a platform and all manner of craziness.
I mean, that's true. Very few pundits paid any price for supporting the disastrous invasion of Iraq in 2003. So Oprah and Gwyneth Paltrow with her Goop operation and Montel Williams, they're operating shows that appeal to the 100 IQ level. They're lower brow shows. I don't think much is expected from them.
And what about, I mean, some people we use the 180 term, but the most dramatic case of turning to 180 I've ever seen is Howard Stern. Any thoughts on that?
Well, he's gotten older. I haven't listened. I've never been a regular listener of his, so I already had enough decadence in my life. For example, when I was writing about the pornography industry, I didn't need more from the Howard Stern show. So I've seen comments that Howard Stern conducts better interviews today or recently than ever before. So he certainly still has his devoted fans, but I also read abundant commentary that the quality of his show has declined, which you'd expect. I mean, he's into his 60s. He's going to repeat a lot of things. He's obviously, the older you get, the less likely you are to take risks, which makes him less compelling, less interesting, less provocative. He's less likely to violate political correctness. So it's tiring to be constantly getting in trouble for the things you say. And so it doesn't surprise me as people get older, they become more cautious. I am much more cautious about the things I say now than I was 6 years ago. So I'm 58. Compared to 52, I am much more discreet.
Yeah, the irony is, in Stern's case, he lost his edge the moment he left what they would call terrestrial radio and had the ability to be edgy. That's the moment he started losing his edge. You know, you notice the irony there.
Yeah. So he lost his major audience, and he also locked in a $200 million deal or $100 million deal. So once you have $100 million in the bank, it would take a lot of normal levels of human motivation away.
Right. I wanted to ask you about like TDS sufferers. Some of the ones that jump out of me, of course, is like the Robert De Niro's of the world and the Bryan Cranston. I can't watch You mentioned once Breaking Bad as a good TV show. When I see Breaking Bad, I see Bryan Cranston. You get what I'm saying? TDS sufferer, just like Sam Harris, just like everybody on The View. If you had like a top 3 or top 5 list of people that just maybe at one time you like, but they suffer from it so bad, you can't even enjoy their shit anymore.
I don't tend to look at people as a totality, so I try to understand people within their genre. So as an actor, I don't expect them to have political wisdom, for example. So people who hate Donald Trump, they don't bother me. I don't classify them. They don't rise up to my thinking. I've never spent much time thinking about them. I take it for granted that different people are going to rub people differently. There are some people who, upon meeting me, just do not like me, and I don't usually lose sleep over that. So, like, I expect an accountant to be excellent at accounting. I don't expect an accountant to be a great stand-up comic. I expect a rabbi to have expertise in the texts of Judaism, but I don't expect him to be a historian or a biologist. I don't expect a great attorney to be ruthlessly dedicated to the facts when the facts cut against his client's best interests and therefore his best interests. So I accept people in their genre. All right. I don't get upset that you're not coming to me from New York City right now. All right. I accept that you live in the country in Tennessee and this is who you are. This is the life that you lead. And I don't expect something different from you. And so with everyone, I just try to accept people as they are. And to the extent that I can appreciate something about them, I do. But I don't usually spend a lot of time obsessing about qualities in people that I don't like. If the qualities are heinous enough, then I just try to maintain distance.
Right. I noticed you mentioned Twitter sometimes, and I myself, I had tried maybe Facebook from like maybe 2008 to 2011 or 2012. And then I don't know, I didn't really think much about it. Just people posting bullshit quotes for the most part. But I see you I hear you talk a lot about like Twitter. And would that be something worth joining? For somebody like me who is a contrarian, a non-joiner, is Twitter something where I should buck my trend and just join it?
I wouldn't recommend to anyone who's not on social media to join social media. I find Twitter is great for some things. I'm very selective about the type of people that I follow. It's easy to get stuck in a silo and just consume a lot of hate porn on Twitter, but Twitter is great for breaking news. There's considered more free speech on the platform X than any other major social media platform. It has to be used responsibly. So definitely some people lose their minds on social media and they develop bad habits. And then those bad habits that they develop online start feeding back into their real life and diminishing their ability to get along with others. So I wouldn't push you to get on any social media.
Right. So when you get on there, is it people's opinion that they're aggregating for you, or is it like videos and stuff? Which is it? Because there was a time where they sounded like it was just chat, but now it's trying to be more than just a chat box. Is that right?
Yeah, there's everything there. There are facts, there are videos, there are audio spaces. I've got friends on there. There are intellectuals who I like to follow, such as Steve Saylor, Charles Murray. So there's a wide variety, and it's just the least censored form of social media. So often I'll get far more accurate and relevant search results when I put them into X as opposed to Google. So anything that's politically incorrect, I'm much more likely to get an accurate search result on X rather than Google.
Right. When I was waiting for you to come online, I got to thinking about the fact you're in Los Angeles. And when I think of Los Angeles, I think of the way when you're coming into LAX, the planes will descend low, and then all you'll see is just cars and congestion and buildings and boulevards for like 75 miles, all the way till you get to the ocean where LAX is.
Yes.
There's not a lot of places like that, what you might call megalopolis or whatever it's called, that have just a sea of people like that. Now that you've been there, would you say you'd have it no other way, or is that you?
What matters to me are the people that I'm around, right? My concrete relationships with people. And so I've lived in Los Angeles since 1994, so 20 years in LA. And so I've built up friends and social circles. So I enjoy all the opportunities that come with living in a big city, and I've learned to minimize the problems that come with a big city. So, for example, I've never had a long commute. So it works for me. On the other hand, it is kind of fun when I get out of the city, get into the country, and I can see stars once again, and I realize that some things that I've been missing. But the way I live my life is I try to keep my focus on the things that I'm glad about, the things that I appreciate, things that make me happy. So I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the downsides of living in Los Angeles. Now, if I had kids, it would be a whole different matter, because it's much more demanding to try to raise children in Los Angeles as opposed to Florida or red states or rural areas where there's not the crime and the social dysfunction, the homelessness, those things.
Yeah. One I live in the country, and the one stark thing that really hit me at first living out here in the country is you have no access to services. They're always coming from somewhere. So even if you're calling them up just to talk, maybe if it's not a specific job, but you want to get an estimate, there might be a trip fee, or you might not even be able to get the quality guy to come where you are because he don't have to leave the city for business. You know what I mean? So you seem to lose out because you're in a skills desert. And then I noticed the grocery store around here is called a Piggly Wiggly. And when you compare it to the prices at say the Walmart back in the city, I don't know, it's 50 to 70% higher. And not only is the prices bad, you're stepping back. You feel like you're stepping back into like 1975 when you used to have those long tube lights that would put that weird glow. Do you remember how things used to be when you
Yes.
first got to America?
Yes.
Had that aesthetic to it that
Yes.
I just feel like it's 1975 again when I go into that Piggly Wiggly. So it's not only that it's a skills desert, it's the places that you got. They're second rate. You can buy the meat in that Piggly Wiggly it's supposed to be good for 5 days. It won't taste as good today. You know, you got 5 days to go and there's something wrong with the taste today. But they're like, these people don't have option B, you know, so they're giving you, I guess, the worst of everything. All apologies to Piggly Wiggly. It could just be the one location. That's really all I had. I just wanted to check in with
bro.
you. And
Great to
I'll
talk
let
to
you
you.
get back to the business at hand. See you, bro.
Okay. Thanks, man. Take care, bro. Bye-bye.
I did.
Prosecution
I
rests.
I love how she says, and here's the duality part.
And here's the duality, because it's the second part.
Like you know, it's a really good rhetorical device when you have to explain it that much.
Well, she's got like in the full act, each and every one, it's like she's thinking it through on the fly.
It's a very simple concept.
It's a pretty simple concept.
Yeah.
It's acting. That's
Holmes,
exactly
that's
right.
acting, right? That's her fakeness.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. I mean, she reminds me of like the shittiest motivational speaker that's ever addressed a junior high anywhere in this country.
Yeah.
That and a cross between like a substitute teacher who has more degrees than a thermometer but can't hold down a job. Like the combination of those two things is, I think, where you get like the duality. Maybe mix in a Tip Top or a Chardonnay, and then you got like the full perfect.
She just like, there is no wisdom there. That's the thing that's so impossible about her becoming president. You're like, there's no wisdom. There's no depth of thinking. This person's not fast on her feet. And whatever she tries to use as a stirring rhetorical device is false, empty, and didn't work on me the first 10 times you tried it.
But remember the first 3 years of Biden's administration, she was a punchline for everybody because of this. And everybody was like, oh, no, Joe Biden's not going anywhere because his insurance policy is his vice president. Nobody thinks his vice president can actually do that job. I mean, that's what everybody talked about before she got the nod to be their nominee. Totally. And now all of a sudden, everybody has to be one of her yes men staffers. The entire press has to be her yes person staffer who listens to that bullshit over and over again and is like, oh, yeah, Kamala, that sounds so smart. You killed it, boss. You know what I mean?
Everything that was once absurd that they laughed at is now treated as profound.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the few staffers that are left, because she ran through about 10 dozen of them in the first year and a half.
There were multiple stories written about that specific thing.
Yeah, that she just couldn't hold. Like nobody wanted to work for her. She was insane. She had these like circular logic reasoning machines, and kept getting pissed off that she was put in a position of having to defend the indefensible and all these things. Like that nobody liked to work for, and they're trying to make this lady president of the United States. What a scary proposition.
Yeah, right. It's why Charlie Spearing had his book.
Yeah, Charlie Spearing. He's been great. Wait, can I say this? They now we've learned over the past week that Lester Holt interview she gave was really jarring for her. She was shaken up by how poorly she did, where she's like, we've been to the border. And he, to his credit, is like, you've never been to the border. And I've never been to Europe. What's your point? And it was disastrous. And she got criticized roundly for it. And apparently, according to the reporting, she went underground after that. She was very shaken by how poorly she did and the reaction to her, and became obsessed with not repeating that mistake, not giving interviews, was worried about what Fox News might be saying about her, got like just very like, oh, you know, my career requires me to be quiet. And she was relatively quiet after that point. You know, we saw her doing a couple things that probably seemed like they'd be harmless, like going to the Space Museum. And then they weren't, because she got dumb and said weird things. But now they've learned their lesson, right? She's out there and she understands she cannot do it. And they understand that too. Everyone's running cover. And the few times she's spoken out, like that duality remark was the other day, you get a glimpse into the real her, like not the curated version we keep getting forced on us by the teleprompter. and at these, events like the campaign events, and I'm sure at the convention on Thursday night, you want to talk about duality. There's your duality right there.
So I put drunk Kamala into YouTube. They don't want to serve up any videos on that. So they give you 5, 6, you have to go 7 to get a debunking video. And then the 8th video they serve up addresses it. All right, let's see. We got a report here. Okay, that's just giving music. All right, Steven Crowder. Maybe we can get the truth from Steven Crowder.
Thank you.
She's drunk.
Thank you. It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it.
Will it only be as strong as our willingness? It's been 28 days since Kamala Harris has been the nominee, and she still has given 0 formal interviews, 0 official press conferences. But credit where it's due, she finally went off script and answered a question. It didn't go great. Didn't they make a movie about this? Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh,
which brings us to
scary times.
Which brings us to, and this will set up, of course, the segment we have on Is She a Drunk? The answer is yes, but we'll prove why. Today in Kamala.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, Our election is about understanding the importance of this beautiful country of ours in terms of what we stand for around the globe as a democracy. I'm buying pickles and barbecue sauce. As a democracy. Dougie, there they are. Yeah. Thank you.
I know you want those.
There you go.
We know there's a duality to the nature of democracy.
I do, and this is my go-to, the original nacho cheese.
Incredibly strong and incredibly fragile. Knowing that you will be undefeated even if you don't win every game, but no circumstance or event or moment will defeat your spirit.
How is the meat?
That was her voice?
Well,
seriously.
Haven't had it today. One day at a time. One day at a time.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been,
So the thing that stands out to me from
Chuck
all of
Taylors?
those clips is that no one around her seems even remotely content.
I just... Yes, it's the people in the background are all just like...
Which makes sense when you understand how abusive alcoholics can be. So another...
Drunks, not
clip
alcoholics.
Has resurfaced, I guess, where Kamala is talking to a crowd in Madison, Wisconsin. There's been some speculation, and by speculation, I mean you have eyes and ears.
So I wanted to come by to thank you.
She's drunk.
Thank you. Because when we think about the strength of our democracy, I think that there's a duality to the nature of
She had a
democracy.
Gainer's center of gravity.
When it's intact, it's so strong.
Saying lines from her scripted speech.
In terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms. So strong in its nature.
I feel like having a beer right now.
Very fragile. It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it.
Will it only be as strong as our willingness?
It's very strong.
Our willingness to fight.
Bring it in for a hug.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, that's the Kamala Harris that Willie Brown remembers, and she really had a grasp on things.
Let's be honest. It was basically an instructional. This has led the internet to do some digging, and then we had to verify. Okay, what out there, what that exists in the internet here is true, because there's some clips out there that are slowed down. There are some that are edited. I think some have used some AI. So what I can tell you is you can check all the references at loudwithcredit.com, link in the description. What you are about to see, these are accurate clips from the original sources.
Oh, no.
And I will be careful with my wording and refer to them as drunk adjacent.
Everything is in context. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us,
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Our extraordinary President Joe Biden. And he's going to speak in a minute, but there's a lot
Worst
of love
toast
in this room
ever.
for our president. He's getting the first turkey?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's being delivered
And so
tomorrow.
just little, 1 minute out. I have 1
Okay,
minute.
yeah.
Kosher salt, fresh ground pepper, maybe chop up a little thyme. And then you can mix it even with, okay, so do the salt and pepper all over it, just lather that baby up. I call myself a joyful warrior. Right? No. You could also chop up, but not with the thyme, just the salt and pepper.
No time.
Mix that up also
we got
with
time for
some
that.
thyme. You could even do a little
Oh, time's
rosemary
back.
if you want. Under the skin with some butter before you're gonna cook it. Never let anyone take your joy from you.
That's her favorite Chardonnay.
You do what you gotta do. And as a woman, there's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch.
Yes, America, you're about to be ruled potentially by Pinterest mom.
Here, baby, have some. Go to sleep.
President Kamala Harris, or as they know her at the bar, Handy Harris. Because let's be...
no.
That's a line of guys.
Long line.
Do you think it was like maybe like Hennessy, or do you think it's like an India Pale Ale?
Well...
Which one? I just want to know.
Dude, she's drunker than I was in my mugshot.
Yeah,
Have you seen that?
And Nick Nolte. Kahlua Kamala is...
Question in the chat, you really think she could have gotten away with being an alcoholic for this long? Yes, I do. And she's not necessarily an alcoholic. She just might need a drink or two to take the edge off.
That's what they're... I can imagine now. Kahlua Kamala, that's what they're calling her. Kahlua Kamala. And VP Irish Car Bomb.
Right, some people are being awfully judgmental that she has a drinking problem, but strikes me that she's got a drinking solution to her inner emptiness and insecurity.
I hear she's creamy but smooth going down.
She looks almost as drunk as her husband when he has to light her Kwanzaa candles. The little black menorah.
That's the three symbols of African unity, even though no one in Africa celebrates it. Or India, don't know what she is. She looks like she's playing rock, paper, stroke is what she looks like.
Well, stroke
she's
always
playing
wins.
right there. Yes.
Come on.
And her family's there. That's good.
Now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump should focus on this. He absolutely should not.
No,
but we can spend time on this because it's funny. And personal opinion, I absolutely think that she was soused. I just want to be very, very clear.
Oh, yeah. Actually, they interviewed her. She answered her for a question this morning. They said, what have you been doing the last 3 years? She said, give me a break. I was drunk.
Yes.
I can't remember.
Yeah, she's the only person who's going to have to blow into...
So Mayor Rudolph, who played Kamala Harris on Saturday Night Live, regularly plays her as though she is drunk.
a device so Air Force One can lift off.
Everybody should troll her campaign and just mail her those little BAC things, the portable breathalyzers that you can take.
Oh,
just
yeah.
be past this. Come on, do it right now, Kamala.
Look, here's the thing, and you guys, if you guys want to send, tips to us, lwctips@protonmail.com. If you work in the hotels, show us how many of the miniature bottles are missing from the mini bar.
Just show us a picture. Got to be able to prove it.
So look, we can't say, and I question you genuinely. Do you think she's a drunkard?
Yes.
I can't, but we can tell you. Few
She
key.
just likes brunch.
Yes, she just likes brunch. Her and Brian Stelter.
Every single meal is brunch.
So during her time in the Senate, she was a part of the wine caucus.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's fine, but
she picks up her wine orders using a pseudonym. Okay. She does seem to host a lot of late night ragers with lady senators. She drinks her wine with ice, which is probably the most offensive portion of all. And she also had a line.
And a good comment in the chat. Would not the late Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan be a precedent? All right. Had a long career in public office and seemed to be drunk every day.
Of whiskey inspired by her. Also, she finds herself tremendously inspired by whiskey.
Is it Mad Dog 2024?
Oh, come on.
And they are making a movie about her life, which it seems like this may be foreshadowing, starring Denzel Washington, called Vices.
I was drunk. I'm drunk now. I'm drunk right now.
They went with a more serious, less laughing version, but you know.
I'm drunk right now. Okay. How else are you supposed to go down on Willie Brown, right? You tell me, huh?
Them saggy ass balls.
Saggy ass ball. I wish he took less time. All right.
Open up cases on all of you.
Dean Martin ain't got nothing on me. So, she's a drunk. She's a drunk. That's all. It's fun. It's fun to have a laugh. We'll get to her economic policy, which is terrifying. And you know she didn't write it because it wasn't riddled with typos. And every other paragraph saying that she really loves you. Here's another fast.
We should hang out more, man.
Yeah. That's what she says to everybody who never responds. So Wisconsin's Minoka Brewing Company, they also have a 9.7% ABV beer named La. It's named after Harris. Now, that's just kind of funny. It doesn't mean she has anything to do with this brewery, but the brewery also has an Antifa Oktoberfest, the Labor Lager, and MAGA Tears.
Gross.
So anyone out there, if you happen to be in that area of Wisconsin, don't go there.
Yeah, never drink that beer, ever.
Don't spend any money on it.
Also, she did, Birds of a Feather. You've heard that? Mm-hmm. You know how it ends?
Mm-hmm. Birds of a feather.
Flocking.
Well, they get drunk.
Stick together.
So, yeah, because they eat the fermented berries. She did pick a running mate who has a DUI on his record.
It's true.
And he does look like perpetually drunk Faces of Death Gerald Ford. My point is...
Looks pretty cool to me.
Jeez.
I just...
Looks like a cool guy you go out with.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll take the hit, dude. Don't worry about it.
She seems drunk, but the policies that she's proposed, even from like pro-Barack Obama economists, their response has basically been, with the rollout of her economic policy or the proposals, the response has been like, yeah, she's drunk. Hey, if you're still watching, you can comment below or click this video playing in a box.
Okay,